Can you feel that? Do you feel it? I feel like something's coming. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and real quick, if you like videos about SHTF topics, survival, or preparations of any kind, please hit the subscribe button below. It helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate you guys' support. So, real quick, I just wanted to talk about something that a lot of us generally discuss in our community, but it's something that I feel like needs to be reiterated. You know, we all have this feeling that something is coming, you know, SHTF, Teotihuacan, the apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, regardless of what that means, if it's a grid down, EMP scenario, or a societal collapse due to the economy, whatever you think it might end up being, we all feel like something is headed our way. Now, whether or not that's because it's been a long time since something like that has happened, whether or not that's human nature that's been built into us over thousands of years of kind of programming that we've decided, you know, there's a reason to be afraid of things in order to survive different situations. Regardless of the reason behind it, a lot of us have a very hive mind mentality of feeling like something is coming. Something very ominous is on its way. And I feel like it's something that we all discuss and we talk about a lot, but we don't necessarily talk about why. And we don't also necessarily talk about the fact that so many people are on that same wavelength. Well, honestly, if you really want to think about it in a more, let's say some might call it enlightened fashion, if everybody's brain is on the same wavelength, okay? Think of it like a TV programming station, and we're all sitting here assuming that something terrible is coming our way. That frequency, or, you know, that broadcast is being put out there for the atmosphere and for every antenna or other brain in the area to kind of receive. And eventually, that theory of positivity, law of attraction, or whatever you want to call it, kind of taps into everyone else's mind. And those people's minds open up to the idea of the same thing happening, which is an ominous, imminent kind of arrival of something negative, something big and calamitous that's going to take us into a different era of our humankind. And unfortunately, it's not a great explanation as to what got us into this situation to begin with. But now that so many of us are sharing that wavelength, a lot of us are feeling that this is something we all perceive as inevitable and is definitely going to happen at some point. Now, if you want to call it getting woke, or if you want to call it being open-minded, or if you want to just say that some people have a good perception compared to others, those people are starting to prepare. They're preppers, or they're survivalists, or even bushcrafters, people who have learned how to live off the land, or learn how to be self-sufficient, you know, or learn how to create their own power, their own water supplies, their own food stock, whatever that might be. Those people are the ones who are receiving that message and taking it as almost a sign, as something that they have received as a reason for them to not just exist, but a purpose for them to drive forward. Something that gives them a reason to kind of move into a position of self-reliance. And people need to understand that that doesn't make you crazy, that doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you in tune with yourself and in tune with your thoughts and your instincts. When people say to trust your instinct, it is an actual thing. You know, our instincts, our gut reaction is something that the human body has developed over many, many years, and it has actually created us, or created a situation for us that allows us to survive situations that we might not otherwise be able to survive, okay? And if you're not listening to your gut reaction or your instincts and something happens, a lot of times you know that if you would have just listened to your initial instinct, you might have gotten through that situation in a different way. And that's the same thing we have going on here. Now, when it gets escalated and more people are actually on that same wavelength of impending disaster, the more and more of us are feeling like it's actually happening sooner than it would have maybe before. And some of that can also be explained in the same fashion. When enough people assume something's real or anticipate something happening, eventually that might just happen because of us all assuming or basically, you know, creating that situation out of our own thoughts and predetermined ideas. And a lot of times people kind of, you know, discount that. They kind of discredit it as saying, you know, oh, that's just, hippie talk or whatever you want to call it. But I think a linked consciousness of a lot of people is a very powerful thing that we don't quite understand. We're over here running, these particle colliders that are opening our minds to a lot of different possibilities that might not have existed before, but it's still hard for us to accept the idea that maybe our brains can tap into each other's wavelength and cause these situations to eventually occur based on the fact that we're attracting those scenarios to us and kind of pulling a scenario out of thin air that might not have otherwise existed, but because so many people are on that same frequency and that same wavelength of saying, something's coming, we need to prepare, and there's going to be this SHTF scenario, well, eventually it might actually just exist due to the fact that enough of us have put enough belief into the idea that it probably will or should exist. And when that happens, I think we'll all kind of feel that same reaction in our gut or in our mind or whatever it might be to say, I knew it. I felt like this was going to happen and here it is. And whether or not you have the higher power aspect, and you believe in God or whatever that might be to you, you could say that that entity is coming down and kind of speaking to you and saying, you need to prepare. Very much like God and Noah. Noah was told by God to prepare. And he was the crazy guy on the end of the block building the ark. And at the end of the day, of course, he survived the flood while many others did not. And that is kind of what we are all feeling, that inevitable idea that something will happen no matter what. And that is true regardless of any other scientific theory out there. The idea that an asteroid will eventually strike this planet, just had a news article written about it recently saying, regardless of whatever you want to think, with an infinite possibility of things happening in an infinite amount of time, one day another world-ending asteroid, like what took care of the dinosaurs, will hit this planet, regardless of whether or not it's tomorrow or if it's in 20 million years. Eventually, it's going to happen because it's just a game of odds and statistics at that point. So I wanted to kind of talk to you guys and just let you know that I feel like something's on its way. You feel like something's on its way. We're not a bunch of doom mongerers. We don't want this thing to happen, but we all feel that same urge to prepare and to get ready for something that could be bigger than what we're used to dealing with on a regular basis. And I think that's very important, and once you've solidified that in your mind and you've gotten that extra strength behind you to say that this is something I'm convicted in and I definitely believe is going to be a possibility one day, it makes the rest of it a lot easier, because pushing through all the strife and all the obstacles that there are to prepping and getting yourself ready, whether or not that's financially, or if it means stocking food, or if it means getting your security put together, or whatever that means, this is something that, if we're all agreeing on it, gives us all strength together to say, we need to do something about it. And I think that's very important. And I think we should all agree, and I think we all should understand that since so many of us agree that this is a situation that's going to happen one day in the future, and probably in the near future with the way things are going now and the way a lot of us think about this whole scenario, then we should prepare as if that's true, because eventually it will be. And I think if enough of our minds are being dialed into the situation and put on that same frequency or broadcast, then we need to understand that there's probably a better reason behind it than just, us being a lot of paranoid weirdos. So, all in all, SHTF is something I feel is on its way. And I think it's something that you feel is on its way. And whether or not that means an EMP, or it means that there's an economic collapse, or maybe another war, or whatever it might be, we all feel it coming. There's that energy in the air. And if you're receptive to it, you're learning that you need to start doing something about it. And if you're not receptive to it, you might consider this video I'm making right now to be, lunatic talk. But either way, there's nothing wrong with being prepared, especially if you're minding your own business and you're not hurting other people by doing so. And if you want to start groups and communities, having community, regardless of what it's for, whether it's for baseball or whether it's for prepping, it's still a good thing, because having those networks of people and having people you can rely on and trust is a very important thing in this world to be able to survive and to be able to move forward, okay? It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's a real thing. And all of us here agree that something's on its way. And if you think something's on its way, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what you think that might be, because it's very interesting to me to hear everybody's different opinions and find out exactly what it is you guys think is on its way sooner than something else maybe. And if enough of our opinions line up, maybe that's something closer to home that we should be actually preparing for, versus something that's more obscure that maybe only a couple of us even know about. So if you have any other ideas or anything else, or maybe you're feeling like you're on the same wavelength or frequency or broadcast or whatever you want to call it, if you feel the same way as a lot of of us feel, make sure you mention it down below, and that way we can kind of see the numbers, see how many of us are actually feeling like, yeah, my gut's telling me this is happening. I don't know why. I'm not exactly sure what it is in that, feeling of mine that makes me assume that something's on its way, but I just have that feeling. And if you're on that same page and I'm on that same page, I think we should actually understand that, being preppers means also being open-minded, and we should be aware of the fact that enough of us feel the same way means probably something is, on its way, not just us being a bunch of, strange, paranoid people that the rest of the world thinks are crazy. So if you have anything else to add, please let me know in the comments below. I love hearing the feedback from you guys. It's been a really good ride so far. Like, share, subscribe, all the things, and that's going to be it for Magic Prep.